Rams. I'm Stella.
And I'm Nathan.
This week's RamTv is all about our nation's veterans and honoring the work they have done to protect our country.
We've prepared a segment for you that does just that and also brings you the real experiences of actual members of the military.
Carry colors. Ready, cut, preset, colors. Carry colors. Ready, cut, order, colors. Ready, cut.
Hi everyone, my name is Sailor Snell and I am the commanding officer of our JROTC program as well as your ASB secretary. In honor of Veterans Day, today I will be talking about each branch of our armed forces and recognizing them as such. There are 6 branches of the military, the first being the Army. The Army is a fighting force dedicated to defending and serving our nation on land, air, and sea. They are the largest branch, possessing a variety of characteristics, jobs, and opportunities that are not just infantry combat, and that encompass what it takes to protect our country, including engineering, medicine, and even their own chaplain corps. Fun fact, the Army is actually older than our country itself. The next branch is the Navy, which is dedicated to maintaining, training, and equipping combat-ready naval forces to maintain freedom of the seas. Obviously, the Navy specializes in maritime combat, but they also harbor influence in other aspects of combat, including aviation and cybersecurity, that aid in their mission of defending our country on the sea. Next up is the Marine Corps, which has the most unique mission of all service branches. They specialize in amphibious assault, meaning they can be utilized for land or sea combat. They are also the most mobile branch. By protecting and serving on naval ships, protecting naval bases, and guarding U.S. embassies, Marines are always ready to dedicate themselves to the protection of their country at a moment's notice. Next is the Air Force, which obviously specializes in combat in the skies. While the Air Force is based around flying, they also possess the most extensive knowledge pertaining to this area of combat. By conducting flight support missions, handling base affairs, protecting bases, constructing new airstrips, and guarding missile sites, they utilize their knowledge to further the protection and the efficiency of our air fighting force. Next is the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard oversees maritime operational missions, such as law enforcement, response prevention, transportation system management, and security and defense operations to protect U.S. waters. Contrary to popular belief, the Coast Guard and Navy are not the same thing. The Coast Guard actually falls under the Department of Homeland Security, solidifying their role as first responders on U.S. waters, lending themselves to our protection as U.S. citizens as opposed to prioritizing defense. Lastly, the Space Force is the newest addition to our armed forces. Specializing in conducting military operations in outer space and space warfare, the goal of the Space Force is to provide space capabilities to our armed forces. In doing this, they are pioneering the frontier of space to learn more about how we can involve ourselves in it for defense purposes. Each of these branches have distinct roles and responsibilities within the scope of our military. In all these roles, they ultimately contribute to upholding our national defense and protecting us as U.S. citizens. In this lies the true value behind Veterans Day and its importance. Happy Veterans Day, Rams. Thank you.
My name is Keith Lovins, and I served in the United States Army, and my title was the Airborne Operations G3 Operations Sergeant Major for Philippines and Korea.
I'm Major Whitley, Jim Whitley. I served in the Marine Corps for 24 years.
Good afternoon. I am Chief Warrant Officer 3 Gonzalez, retired. I served in the United States Marine Corps and achieved the rank of Chief Warrant Officer 3. Started as an enlisted person and then became an officer.
I was 18 years old when I graduated from high school, and my titles were Infantryman, Airborne, Air Assault, Drill Sergeant, Special Forces, Team Sergeant, First Sergeant, G3 Air Operations Sergeant Major.
I actually signed my paperwork my junior year, so I was 17 when I signed my contract. I was 18 when I enlisted, so I left shortly after I turned 18 to go to boot camp.
I enlisted when I was 18, right out of high school, and I served 22 years.
I think the military is a good opportunity for young women and young ladies to go into. It sets them up for their career path for what they want to do.
First thing I would say to young people who want to enlist, make sure you're doing it for the right reason. Make sure it's not just for benefits or world travel. Make sure you want to serve, because if you don't, you're probably going to be a miserable person. Also, I would say talk to every recruiter. Don't get set on one service. Make sure you find out all the information before you sign any papers.
I would say, doesn't matter the branch you serve. It's going to challenge you. It's going to make you grow really fast, and take whatever they have to offer, soak it up, and do your job. Whether you call it a career, 20 years or more, or get out, you should be a better person.
My time in service has taken me many places around the world, has given me the opportunity to serve and to grow in leadership. But I couldn't have done it without my wife. She has been by my side for the last 40 years of my enlistment, and I couldn't have done it without her.
I'd like people to know about my time in service is I loved it. I love the people. Maybe not the job sometimes. The jobs could be miserable. I miss the people. I miss their camaraderie. I miss the ready room when I was flying. And I still play fantasy football with a lot of guys I went to Iraq with.
It was quite a ride. It was everything I asked for and more. I wanted to get out of my community and go do something else and different, and travel, several deployments, college, lot of schooling, and definitely made me a better person.
In observance for Veterans Day, we wanted to bring you some insight on a very important national monument called the Arlington National Cemetery. This historical landmark is dedicated to anyone who has served in the military. It is a resting place for more than 14,000 veterans, even dating back to the Civil War. The cemetery was originally founded by George Washington's grandson, but has gone through many changes over the years for upkeep and usage. The U.S. Army seized the land in 1861, and sections 3, 4, 8, 18, and 20 was eventually made into a Freedom's Village for escaped or freed slaves. To be buried at Arlington was originally not considered an honor, but if family members of the soldiers could not afford to give them a proper burial, they were buried in this cemetery. The existing national cemeteries at the time were running out of space, and they proceeded to close as the burials began at Arlington. This cemetery is so historic that the first official Memorial Day was actually held there in 1868. This tradition continues today and makes Arlington into the premier national military cemetery. There is also a monument there for many soldiers that have unidentifiable remains. They call that section the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Along with this, there are 2 U.S. presidents buried in the cemetery, William Howard Taft and John F. Kennedy. JFK made multiple appearances at Arlington, even right up until his assassination. After his death, First Lady Jackie Kennedy wanted her husband's gravesite to be accessible to the American people. The original location of his grave had to be moved due to a huge number of visitors. Once moved, an eternal flame was lit by Mrs. Kennedy that continues to burn at the head of the grave. This is called the Eternal Flame. For more information, please go to the Arlington National Cemetery website.
Once again, thanks to all the veterans out there who have served.
That's all we have for you this week.
Until next time,
Great to be a Ram.
Thank you, veterans.
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 Thank you, veterans.